$250,000 a year for a sport that has never turned a profit, a sport that, let's be honest, until Caitlin Clark showed up, there wasn't no ratings and shit. Hell, most of these teams still can't sell out. You know, they're not selling out in Dallas. They're not selling out in Chicago. Oh, wait a minute. I thought the two biggest other stars in the whole league were, never mind. Oh, Rhodes, you're not supposed to bring up facts. But the point is, you get my point. All right? So now I've
Recent developments in the WNBA collective bargaining negotiations have sparked significant discussion. Reports indicate the league has put forward a proposal featuring compensation increases approximately 4 times higher than current guaranteed amounts. The minimum annual pay would rise to roughly $225,000 for a competition that has historically operated without generating profits. Before Caitlin Clark's arrival, viewership numbers remained low, and numerous franchises continue struggling with ticket sales. Notable markets like Dallas and Chicago haven't achieved capacity crowds despite housing prominent athletes. A noteworthy aspect involves speculation that this information reached front office sports through strategic channels, potentially aimed at regaining public support during contentious negotiations.
You get my point. All right? So now I get the notion this is being floated out. And the WNBA is wanting to yank away team housing. Now, I'm just going to keep it real. We know how this league gets down. What were the teams paying for here? Y'all paying for Big Brother / insert some reality show behind the scenes, you know.
The timing appears deliberate given recent fan sentiment shifts. The proposal includes eliminating player accommodations provided by organizations. Teams have supplied housing arrangements since 2016, raising questions about the motivations behind this change. Some athletes with substantial endorsement deals maintain private residences, though many rely on team-provided lodging. The current system offers various arrangements during competition periods and postseason play. Athletes can choose between organization-supplied accommodations or monthly allowances ranging from $1,177 in Las Vegas to $2,647 in New York.
Insert some reality show behind the scenes, you know. What y'all's personal life all shacking up together look like? You know, now I think some of the players that have endorsements, et cetera, they all have their own houses, whatever. But somebody wants you to know, well, they're trying to take something away. Oh, and they're trying to start the season earlier. I don't know if that is their way of combating Project B by starting the season.
Those with young children receive upgraded 2-bedroom units. Another controversial element involves extending the competition calendar with an earlier launch date. This scheduling adjustment would directly conflict with the NCAA tournament timeline and possibly impact other competitions like Project B. The proposed training camp commencement could occur as early as mid-March. Currently, the 44-game schedule runs from May through early September, with recent championship rounds concluding in mid-October. Creating overlap with the collegiate tournament presents questionable strategy.
Way of combating Project B by starting this season earlier, I think it would officially get in the way of the end of Project B, I think. So let's check this out. The WNBA has proposed a 6-figure base max salary as part of the new CBA agreement, but it's coming at a cost. The league has removed team housing from proposals submitted to Women's National Basketball Players Association, including the most recent several league sources.
Many future professionals establish their public profiles through NCAA tournament performances. Caitlin Clark's popularity surge came largely through her tournament appearances with Iowa. Similarly, Angel Reese gained recognition at LSU, and South Carolina has produced stars through collegiate competition. Women's college basketball generates impressive ratings that frequently surpass WNBA viewership, making antagonizing this pipeline seem counterproductive. The scheduling change creates complications regarding how newly selected athletes would transition. Would they join teams immediately after selection and begin competing without proper preparation periods?
Basketball Players Association, including the most recent several league sources, told Front Office Sports. Teams have been required to provide players with in-season housing since 2016. The league has also proposed lengthening the season, including an earlier start date that is expected to interfere with the NC2A tournament and potentially other leagues such as Project B. Okay. If they want to interfere with another off-season league, that's their prerogative.
The logic appears unclear. While distancing from NFL and college football competition makes strategic sense, interfering with the tournament that develops future talent seems problematic. This scheduling shift may also prepare for expanded regular seasons. The league currently plays 44 contests, increased from 40, with expectations pointing toward 50 games within 3 to 4 years by the next agreement cycle. Compensation figures in the latest offer show substantial growth. The maximum base amount reaches $1 million, with performance bonuses potentially adding another $200,000, rising from the previous $800,000, $850,000 ceiling.
That's their prerogative. It is. Now, do I think they're going to get pushback on that? When you consider how much money is at stake in this new league in particular, yeah, they're going to get pushback. I have a massive problem with them interfering with the NC2A tournament. That doesn't make any sense. It does not compute. Why would you do that? Because a lot of your future stars are building their
average compensation would exceed $500,000. The salary ceiling would jump from $1.5 million to $5 million per organization. Under recent proposals, this ceiling would scale with league and organizational revenue regardless of specific benchmarks, moving closer to what athletes have requested. These figures suggest negotiations are progressing toward resolution. The housing elimination and schedule changes appear positioned as public relations talking points. Observers note that with such substantial financial increases being offered, public opinion may shift toward expecting athletes to accept terms and proceed with competition.
Because a lot of your future stars are building their brands in the NC2A tournament. How the hell do you think Caitlin Clark got to be so popular? Her runs in the NC2A tournament with the Iowa Hawkeyes. I mean, Angel Reese, LSU. That is South Carolina. In case you have not noticed, guys, college basketball ratings with the women, the ratings are pretty damn good. And in a lot of cases, they're higher than the
athletes most impacted by accommodation changes would be those on temporary agreements spending limited time in particular markets. The current framework mandates reasonable attempts to create 30 employment opportunities during the off-season with sponsors or organizations beyond the league. These employers can provide seasonal housing as part of employment terms. Athletes assigned to organizational and league promotional contracts qualify for housing assistance during off-season periods. Existing regulations permit training camp commencement no earlier than April 1st, with restrictions preventing moves exceeding 30 days before regular season launch. The campaign currently extends through October 31st maximum.
Damn good. And in a lot of cases, they're higher than the WNBA. So I don't know that they want to bite the mouth that feeds, or whatever that saying is. Bite the hand that feeds. Yeah, something like that. You get my point. And how does that work with the draft? They get drafted, they immediately come in and start playing without I don't know. That kind of doesn't make any sense.
Recent years have seen training camps begin late April following NCAA tournament conclusions and the draft. Last October, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert announced the increase to 44 contests and the shift to 7-game series formats. Multiple sources interpret the proposal as deliberately disrupting the NCAA tournament time.
Hardship players. Like, I think it's an annoyance, but I think of all things, it's not even enough money. So it realistically, WNBA shouldn't be looking to cut the corner. But this is the crazy thing. We have training camp starting in mid-March. College basketball ends in mid-April. College basketball ends in mid-April. So they literally will have they're not allowed to start training camp more than a month.
How further calendar conflicts might affect relationships with global competitors remains uncertain. The union and league haven't reached consensus, extending negotiations through January 9th. Considerable issues require resolution, but the tournament interference stands out as particularly problematic given how collegiate competition helps develop superstars. Caitlin Clark's rookie campaign illustrated this challenge. Her performance elevated significantly after approximately 2 months, particularly following the All-Star and Olympic breaks. The theory suggests exhaustion affected recently drafted athletes who transitioned almost directly from tournament play to professional competition with minimal recovery.
Basketball ends in mid-April, so they literally will have they're not allowed to start training camp more than a month before the start of the season. What does that mean? The draft will happen during the season. During the season. So, they want the draft to happen during the season. So, rookies don't get to do a training camp with their team or anything. Rookies randomly join their teams. So basically, you will have to sign all of your players. You will either have to go out with 10 players if you want to bring in rookies, or
requiring athletes to abandon potential tournament opportunities seems detrimental to business interests. The NFL has maintained positive relationships with collegiate football, and similar cooperation between the WNBA and college basketball appears beneficial for all parties. Additional considerations include potential playoff format expansions. The league may be targeting 7-game series throughout all postseason rounds, requiring the earlier start date to accommodate extended regular seasons and longer playoff formats. These strategic decisions will significantly shape the competition's future direction. The WNBA has put forward a proposal that includes several controversial changes, with the most shocking being the potential scheduling of the draft during the active season.
Players if you want to bring in rookies, or you have to sign a whole bunch of players and then cut them as soon as your rookies come in. It doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'm going to be very honest. It makes no sense whatsoever. And I was reading this, I was like, this can't be real. And I was reading through this article. The current CBA will allow the WNBA to move the start of training camp up to April the 1st at the earliest, which doesn't matter for Unrivaled. I think that's part of
this stems from a complex situation involving the league's expanded schedule and timing constraints. The proposal suggests eliminating team-provided housing, though this primarily impacts a limited number of athletes. Most players, particularly those with substantial endorsement deals, already secure their own accommodations. The housing budget allocated for this purpose is relatively minimal, making it a peculiar area for cost-cutting. However, the removal of team housing would particularly affect hardship players and temporary roster additions. A reasonable compromise would require teams to continue providing accommodations specifically for temporary players.
For Unrivaled, I think that's part of the reason why Unrivaled's gone earlier this year. It's basically starting a month earlier. It doesn't really matter for Unrivaled. It doesn't really matter for Project B. They can organize it a little bit earlier. But it says the season currently permitted to run through October 31st. In recent years, training camps began the end of April, weeks after conclusion of the tournament, the WNBA draft. Last October, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert announced the league's decision to increase the regular season to a 44-game slate. The schedule will change, including the final switch into 7 games. Multiple sources have interrupted.
The core issue revolves around scheduling conflicts. Training camp is restricted to beginning no more than 1 month before the season starts, with the earliest possible date being April 1st under current collective bargaining agreement terms. Meanwhile, college basketball tournaments conclude in mid-April. This creates an impossible timeline where the draft would need to occur after the professional season has already begun. The implications are significant. Rookie players would miss training camp entirely with their new teams, joining squads already several weeks into competition.
Multiple sources have interpreted the WNBA's latest proposal as directly interfering with the timeline of the NCAA tournament and would have rookies arriving weeks into the season. Prioritization, and the thing of prioritization is there are certain as annoying as it is, it's not the be all and end all. Because you can't. There are certain countries you can't play in. There's a lot of players that are getting let out of contracts, and the obviously the prioritization rule only matters.
Teams would face difficult roster decisions, either operating with reduced rosters to accommodate incoming rookies, or signing temporary players who would subsequently be released when draft picks arrive. Neither scenario makes operational sense. The scheduling challenge intensifies because the league plans to extend the regular season to 44 games, with the campaign running through October 31st. In previous years, training camps started in late April, following the conclusion of college tournaments and the draft process. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert announced the expanded schedule, which includes modifications to playoff series length. Multiple sources interpret this proposal as directly conflicting with NCAA tournament timing, resulting in rookies joining teams well after season commencement.
Obviously, the prioritization rule only matters for players that have played a certain amount of years. There's a lot of players, realistically, long term, who will be having to go play in certain leagues. As you can see, I think Leo Fibish can play one more year in Spain. And then I think it's next year, which is why she signed up for Project B. I think it's the same with, you can play, I think you can play in Czech Republic, you can play for there's a lot of countries and teams you can play for. But obviously, they have a letter of clearance.
Prioritization rules compound the complexity. These regulations require players to report at the start of training camp or face season-long suspensions. The rule was implemented because some players were arriving late from overseas commitments. Players must obtain letters of clearance to participate in both international and domestic leagues. Countries like Spain and the Czech Republic have different agreements, and some players can compete in specific leagues for certain periods. For instance, certain athletes can play one additional year in Spain before prioritization rules fully apply, which influences decisions about participating in leagues like Project B.
Have a letter of clearance system, you can play in both. Obviously, there's Malonga shit that's going on that she might be allowed to play. But it says here, with the prioritization rule, they have to be there at the start of training camp or face a suspension, which obviously was brought in because players were showing up a little bit late. And if you miss training camp, you're done for the season, which is something that they may want to get rid of. But I cannot believe that obviously they proposed length the season.
The proposed changes appear designed to interfere with other professional leagues, particularly those operating internationally. However, leagues like Unrivaled and Project B, which have adjusted their schedules to start earlier, may adapt more easily to these changes than traditional overseas competitions in Europe and elsewhere. There's speculation that this proposal represents the league's response to player requests for an extended season, with the hard deadline of October 31st for season conclusion, lengthening the schedule.
They proposed length the season, including an earlier start date. Expect to interfere with the other leagues. So, I think this, when I say this, I think this is what it is. This is the players being like, oh, the season needs to be longer. And then the league going, well, we can't actually play a game after October 31st. So if you want the season to be longer, therefore we have to start earlier. Therefore, there's not going to be rookies. There's not going to be rookies. Rookies aren't allowed to come in. I think this is
It's essentially a letter of the law compliance that doesn't genuinely address player concerns. Alternative solutions exist. Training camp doesn't require 3 full weeks. The prioritization rule could be modified so players must report by the first regular season game rather than training camp start, or perhaps 1 week before the first preseason contest. There's typically a significant gap between early training camp sessions and actual games, suggesting flexibility in scheduling.